I mean, I think it's fairly true to say that looking at the Labour Party last week, they have vacated the centre ground, and Mrs May made it pretty clear today that she wants to move her party towards it, but it was very unclear as to how she plans to do it. At certain points in the speech, she almost seemed to be channeling UKIP, the part where she suggested that people who are unemployed or low paid are right to blame immigrants for their plight. A lot of independent experts say there is precious little evidence for that. She talked a lot about the workers. She talked also a lot about the people who consider themselves citizens of the world. But in terms of actually something to offer those workers, in terms of a pay rise for the public sector, or perhaps extending free childcare for people who have children under 3, there was nothing of that sort. It was a very general speech, a very general pitch, and I think people will be watching closely over the next few months to see exactly what she means by moving to the centre ground.
Libby, thank you. And from the Conservatives to UKIP, and Nigel Farage is back in charge this lunchtime, at least on a temporary basis, after the shock resignation of Diane James last night. She quit the job after just 18 days in charge, saying personal and professional reasons led to her decision. Well, our political correspondent Carl Dinnin is live now in Westminster. First of all, Ms James' departure. What more do you know about that, Carl?
Well, Alistair, despite being one of UKIP's best performers, the real problem was she never wanted this job in the first place. One insider told me she had to be nagged into standing for it by Nigel Farage. Then when she got the job, she found that she couldn't make the reforms that she thought the party needed because she didn't have the support of the ruling executive and, critically, of its powerful group of MEPs. Although, talking to us earlier, Nigel Farage disagreed with that.
I didn't agree with her comments about the MEPs. I've just been in a meeting with all the UKIP MEPs, all of whom were more than prepared to support her as the leader of UKIP. So I don't think she's quite right about that. But look, you know, clearly she's been in a bad place for the last 18 days and has just decided it's not for her.
Now, that bad place that he's talking about might also be a reference to stresses caused by an illness in the family, and also the fact that she was apparently spat at after becoming leader when she was making a train journey, all of which led to her thinking she'd had enough, although I do think it was the problems getting her reforms through that were the main issue.
So how long then do you think Nigel Farage will be back in charge, and if I may, tongue-in-cheek, say this time?
Oh, well, funny thing is, he never really went away. It turns out she hadn't filled in the forms properly, and he was still technically the leader. So he goes on being interim leader. He says he doesn't want the job long term, although there are many in the party think that he casts a long shadow and will still want to come back. But they have to sort this out quickly. This is a party without an obvious mission, without a lot of money, and with a capacity for self-destruction that makes Labour look amateurish.
Carl, thank you. In the past hour, a journalist known as the fake sheikh, because of the disguise he uses in undercover investigations, has been found guilty of trying to pervert the course of justice. Mazhar Mahmood's now facing jail for tampering with evidence in the collapsed drugs trial of the former X Factor judge Tulisa Konstantakopoulos. Sejal Karia has the details.
He was the self-styled king of the tabloid sting, exposing the secrets of the rich and famous. Among them, the former England manager Sven-Göran Eriksson and the Duchess of York. But today, the reporter dubbed the fake sheikh has himself been exposed as a liar. He is Mazhar Mahmood, a man who fiercely guards his identity, arriving at his trial every day with his face hidden. However, a jury found him guilty of misleading a court over one of his undercover stings.
I'll give you a shout. I've got a job now.
The man behind the disguise was unmasked by a documentary team, and his ex-boss told me on this occasion he crossed a line.
I've been amazed that it's taken so long to bring him to book. He sailed so close to the wind on so many occasions. He's been involved in cases where the trials have collapsed, and he seems to have really skated on thin ice and got away with it.
He'd accused the former X Factor judge Tulisa Konstantakopoulos of setting up a drugs deal, which she always denied. She said he duped her into thinking she would get a film role, but she never intended to give him the cocaine he demanded. It ended with this front page headline: But today Mahmoud was found guilty of plotting to change a police statement to make her look guilty. Talisa's drugs trial was thrown out of court 2 years ago when she gave this statement.
This whole case was a horrific and disgusting entrapment by Mazir Mahmoud and the Sun on Sunday newspaper.
Lawyer Mark Lewis says others targeted by Mahmoud may now try and clear their names and, if successful, seek compensation.
People who've had their lives ruined, they can have 20 years or more of lost income, lost houses, compensating them for having to have spent time in prison. I mean, you are talking a very serious amount of money.
The man whose investigations led to dozens of people being jailed will now see one of his own stings land him behind bars. Sejal Karia, ITV News.
In the past few years, the city of Aleppo has changed beyond recognition. Once Syria's largest commercial hub, now much of the city lies in ruins. Hospitals, schools and homes not spared from the devastating impact of war. Our latest figures show that on Monday alone there were 7 airstrikes on the city, resulting in the deaths of 9 people. Well, all this week, ITV News is focusing on the people in the east of the city as they continue their life amid the daily bombardment. Emma Murphy reports now on the latest in our special series on Aleppo, Under Siege.
It's hard to believe that just 3 years ago this was Aleppo, a place where giddy children could gather for community parties, where the sound of song echoed in the streets and their bodies were unharmed. But what a change has been wrought. This was the same area in February, and the price its residents have paid for standing against the government is clear, as once self-sufficient families queue for food. And yet those challenges are nothing in comparison to the hell of that very same street today, almost obliterated by relentless air attacks from the government that they oppose and their Russian allies. It's not just the buildings being obliterated, but those unfortunate enough to have been inside them at the time. The children who once gathered in the street now huddle in broken homes, but there is no safety. This house has just been hit from above. What looks like snow is actually dust, and the bandages are from injuries sustained in previous attacks. This little girl's stunned face is filthy with bomb residue. Other homes have collapsed completely, and if survival means luck in Aleppo, those children are the lucky ones. A few doors away, a man was killed, as well as a 14-year-old boy. That thousands have gone before takes nothing from the agony of their family's grief. Neither Russia nor the Assad government deny attacking eastern Aleppo, but they say they do so to kill terrorists. Their strikes happen so often now that people don't even flinch. You can hear them as this woman speaks. It's hard to believe that around 250,000 people are still in this city and 100,000 children. They don't gather in the streets anymore because for the majority there is little left of the streets they once knew as home. Emma Murphy, ITV News.
There are more of our films and specially commissioned accounts from inside eastern Aleppo on our website. That's itv.com/news. Still to come, the hard road to recovery, a special report on the reality of fighting cancer. And running into history, the man about to complete 401 marathons in 401 days. But first, a man's been found guilty of murdering a waiter almost 2 decades ago, following a second trial made possible by a change in double jeopardy laws. In 1999, Ronnie Coulter was acquitted of the murder of Sujit Singh Chowdhury, who was stabbed to death in 1998. Well, today, jurors at the High Court in Glasgow found him guilty. Scotland correspondent Peter Smith was in court and joins me now. Peter.
Alistair, well, it has been 18 years since the murder of Surjit Singh Chokar. He was an Indian waiter on his way home from work, returning to his girlfriend's house in Lanarkshire, when he was attacked by 3 men. He was stabbed by one of them and left to die in the street. Now, in the almost 2 decades that have passed, the Chokar family have seen 3 trials. They have seen 2 independent inquiries, one of which found evidence of damning mistakes and even institutional racism in the police, the Procurator Fiscal's Office and the Crown Office in Scotland. They've also seen, as you say, a change in the double jeopardy laws in Scotland, which allowed them today at the Glasgow High Court to see justice, because today Ronnie Coulter became the first man to be convicted of the murder of Surjit Singh Chokar 18 years ago. And after campaigning so hard and fighting for so long for this moment of justice, the family came out to make a statement that was read by their family lawyer Amar Amar outside the High Court this morning.
Whilst the dead cannot cry out for justice, it is the duty of the living to do so for them. The Chokar family have done just that, and have also placed victims' rights at the heart of a modern criminal justice system, which will be their legacy for generations to come.
This has been a very controversial case and prolonged case in Scotland. It even drew support from Stephen Lawrence's parents, who came up to show support to the Chokar family. Now, there were originally 3 men who were accused of the murder. Only one has been convicted. I asked Manjit Sangha, who is Surjit Singh Chokar's sister, if the family would now like to pursue another go at trying to charge these 2 men for murder. She said no. Case is closed, story's finished, and you can understand they've been through so much why they are content with this portion of justice.
Peter, thank you. Hurricane Matthew, one of the most powerful tropical storms in years, hit Haiti overnight with winds of up to 145 miles an hour. Buildings and roads have been torn up. It's unknown how many people have died. The hurricane is now headed for America's east coast, where it's due to reach land tomorrow. And here, Tesco's are showing positive signs in what's been a difficult time for the chain. The UK's biggest retailer reported a 0.6% increase in sales during the second quarter of the year, but its pre-tax profits were still down 28%. This lunchtime on the ITV News, we've been reporting on the impact cancer has on children and young people. Today, we're looking at how not just patients, but entire families are affected. 17-year-old Becky Shaw has Hodgkin's lymphoma. We joined her as she travelled from her home in Herefordshire with her mum for her regular course of chemotherapy. Victoria Grimes has the story.
I've got doxorubicin, 50 milligrams in 25 mils of normal saline.
I really don't like chemo. For some bizarre reason, it gives you a little taste in your mouth, and quite often when I go home, I go straight to bed and I wake up and my bed smells of chemo. I hate it, but I haven't really got much choice.
At just 17, Becky Shaw should be enjoying life like any other teenager. But instead, she's just trying to stay alive.
Morning, Becky. 6:30. Time to get up.
Diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma in July, Becky and her mum have spent most of their summer travelling to chemotherapy appointments. It's a 100-mile round trip from their home in Hereford.
I am very tired for waking up at 6:30.
Becky has to have chemotherapy every 2 weeks. She says the long journeys don't help her or her mum, who's still trying to come to terms with her daughter's diagnosis.
It would be so much easier if I could have gone through it myself. But to watch your child go through it is very emotionally draining, because not only have you got to do the practical things, making sure she gets to where she needs to go when she needs to go, but it's the emotional baggage that goes with it as well. You know, the idea of having to come up to chemo, having to get up early, having to have that journey, you can just sense it in the day before, you know, it's all chemo tomorrow. It's a chemo week. I know there's going to be this incredibly long journey.
It just hurts. I'm feeling very tired and quite sick, and I just want to get home as quick as I can, and it's just such a far journey. I really don't like it.
Becky and her mum would like to see specialist facilities for teenagers with cancer closer to their home. Until then, they'll keep making this journey. Victoria Grimes, ITV News.
And finally, running a marathon's a pretty daunting prospect. But what about 401 in 401 days? That's the challenge that Ben Smith is about to complete in Bristol this afternoon. Martha Fairley reports.
Still with a spring in his step, Ben Smith set out in Bristol this morning on the final leg of his 401-day marathon challenge. With him, hundreds of runners supporting him on the last stage of this 10,500-mile journey. Since September the 1st last year, he's run the equivalent of a marathon every day.
Thank you so much for coming.
And the scale of what he's achieved is only just sinking in.
It's been a roller coaster, and I don't even think my feet have touched the ground, to be honest with you. I think the next couple of weeks, after everything starts to wind down and I start to wind down in my cool down process, I'll start to kind of reflect and start to put some thoughts together really about what's happened on each day. But I'm starting to buzz now. I'm really excited to get going.
Ben has worn out 22 pairs of trainers, burned 22.5 million calories and battled through injuries to his spine, knees, heels and shins.
So day 122 in Derby, and oh my God, the turnout's been incredible. Just check it out.
He's been supported along the way by more than 9,000 local runners as he raises awareness of bullying of young people. And he's visited 101 schools to explain why he took on this challenge.
I suppose the next logical question is why? I was badly bullied at school.
Ben's epic run will end this afternoon. He's hoping to set a new world record, but also to reach his target of raising £250,000 for charity. Martha Fairley, ITV News.
And that is it this lunchtime from all of us. A very good afternoon to you.